Hello everyone, my name is Tom Thorne. I'm representing Updatell, Servants of the Most High God Ministries. And I would like to ask everyone to please bear with us. This is our first YouTube recording, and I'm going to make some mistakes, and I might say some wrong things, and the lighting is definitely not perfect, and other things are not perfect, but hopefully the message I give will be good, and you'll be able to overlook some of these technical imperfections. But I would like to give a grand thanks to my wonderful production crew of one, my wife Amy, my lovely wife Amy. We've worked hard to get where we are, and we hope this video is fairly good at least. Let me tell you a little bit about Updatell to start with. We're based out of North Carolina, and our goal is to treat the Old Testament and the New Testament as one book. The Old Testament being the Tanakh, and the New Testament, the Brit Kadashah. We'd like to treat them all as one book, complementing each other, helping each other. One book, one God, one Father, one Creator, and that's all there is to it. Now, we do search the original scriptures search the original Hebrew for additional understanding, additional knowledge. We don't search the original scriptures, the original Hebrew, to rewrite the Bible to fit what we want it to fit. We don't do that. We search the original scripture to gain additional understanding, to try to draw closer to Yeshua, to God, to try to draw closer to what the original writings said and meant, but not to rewrite the Bible. Okay, with that brief introduction, as a point of reference, this is December 2019. Right now, Updatell, Servants of the Most High God, we're in the midst of a series that we call the Hebrew Roots of Select New Testament Passages. There are certain passages in the New Testament, the Brit Kadashah, that are wonderful, magnificent, beautiful, and critical to the life of a believer in Yeshua, Jesus. 5 of these passages are Matthew 5, verses 1 through 12, which is known as the Beatitudes, Galatians 5, 22 through 23, the fruit of the Spirit, 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, Philippians 4, verse 8, which tells us to think on these things, focus on these things, and James 5, 13 through 18, which asks the question, are any sick among you? These are the 5 passages that we're really focusing on right now. So what we're going to do, we're going to examine these 5 passages. I'm going to read them first in English, and then we're going to look at these passages as translated into Hebrew by the Delitzsch Hebrew New Testament or the Modern Hebrew New Testament, and see if we can gain any additional understanding into these timeless words of Yeshua, Paul, and James. In this series today, in the class today, we're going to discuss the benefits of looking into these Hebrew translations. And we're going to have a short discussion on the word truth. And I think that's probably all the farther we'll get in this 30-minute class. If we have time left, we'll begin our discussion of Matthew 5, but I don't think we'll have much time left. So, why look into the Hebrew for these passages? A person could come up to me and say, why look into the Hebrew for these verses? The New Testament was written in Greek, wasn't it? Well, there is some controversy about whether it was totally written in Greek or whether parts of it were written in Hebrew or even Aramaic. But so that's a hard question. I don't want to debate. I don't want to talk about that right now. That's not my point here. But I think we all read in English, and the New Testament has been translated from Greek to English. And that's what we all read in. So why translate these verses into Hebrew and study from that perspective? That's a good question, but in my opinion, it's really valuable to do so. Yeshua, Jesus, was Jewish. The 12 disciples were all Jewish. The writers of the books of Matthew, Galatians, 1 Corinthians, Philippians, and James were all Jewish. They lived in Judea. They most likely spoke Hebrew. They may have spoken Aramaic. They may have spoken Greek too. They may have been trilingual. But they were Jewish. They all observed the seventh-day Sabbath and the biblical holy days and other Old Testament customs. They all thought from a Jewish perspective, a Jewish mindset. So by that way of thinking, I would suspect that when they spoke and wrote, they wrote from a Jewish/Hebrew mindset. Therefore, I think it is very profitable for us to look at the writings of these New Testament passages as they are translated into Hebrew as well. Not to try to rewrite the Bible or puff us up as know-it-alls or Hebrew experts, which I'm not, but to try to enhance our learning and understanding of Yeshua and to better our lives and the lives of those we come into contact with. Hence our series title, The Hebrew Roots of Select New Testament Passages. So once again, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be looking at these passages in English, then taking key words in the passages and seeing how they're translated into Hebrew from the Delitzsch Hebrew New Testament or the modern Hebrew New Testament translations. And from there, looking to see if we can gain some additional understanding. And please believe me, this works. This has helped our fellowship tremendously. It's helped me personally tremendously. There's a lot to learn that we just don't see by reading it in English. There's a lot to add to the wonderful words of Yeshua. Okay, before we get started, I think it's a good idea for us to take a look at the word truth. Truth. There are 12 different words in the Old Testament that are translated into English as truth. The word occurs a total of 117 times in the Old Testament, the Tanakh, and 235 times in the King James Bible. The most common Hebrew word is emeth, Aleph, Mem, Tav, which is transliterated as emeth. Emeth comprises 90 of the 117 Old Testament usages. Now let's take a deeper look into this word and see if there's more to it than just the obvious. First thing I want to look at is what I call balance. Balance. Truth in Hebrew is spelled Aleph, Mem, Tav. When we expand these Hebrew letters a little, we can begin to see some interesting tidbits of information. The word is what could be called a well-balanced word. Notice the letter Tav on the left side, as well as the letter Aleph on the right side, are both grounded with two legs. Now notice I said the last letter Tav on the left side and the first letter Aleph on the right side. Hebrew, of course, reads from right to left. Okay, now, both of these letters are grounded with two legs. The middle letter, Mem, is flat on the bottom. The word is balanced with nearly equal weight on both sides from the middle. It has a firm foundation. Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus, offers us a balanced life on a firm foundation. Hebrews 1 verse 10, In the beginning, Lord, you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the works of your hands. A life that is full of grace and truth. Not ready to fall over the edge, wildly unbalanced on either side, but on a solid base. Imagine what has to be in balance for the universe to stay in place, or the balance that is necessary for this planet to maintain its ability to support life every day, the balance that has to be in place every single second of every day for humanity to stay alive. And all of these things were created by Yeshua. Colossians 1:15 through 16. King James Version. Who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature? For by him were all things created, that are in heaven and that are on the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. Yeshua, Jesus, is the strong fortress who has defeated Satan, was raised from the dead, and will come again with all power and glory. It's by Yeshua that we can overcome temptation and evil. Yeshua's blood was poured out for the forgiveness of sins. The covenant that Yahweh makes with his people is all made possible by the life, sacrifice, and resurrection of Yeshua. Now that is real power, and that is balance. Second point I want to talk about is the pictographs. Pictographs. Hebrew scholar and author Frank Seekins, who is an excellent writer, who has an excellent book on this. If you don't have his book on this, it's very, very well worthwhile to purchase. Frank Seekins explains that originally the Hebrew language was comprised of pictographs, or pictures, to represent letters and words. Different combinations of these pictographs would comprise different words, thought patterns, or ideas. The pictographs for the three Hebrew letters that comprise the word emeth are Aleph, Mem, and Tav. Aleph on the top there, Mem in the middle, and Tav at the bottom. Now, let's examine the pictographic representation of these three letters. At the start we have Aleph, which of course is on the right side of the word, I said, which in pictorial form is an ox and represents strength and power. At the end we have Tav, which in its original form looked like a cross and represented a seal or a covenant. And in the middle we have Mem, which in the ancient alphabet represented water, liquid, or blood. Now, take a look at the pictographic representations once again. First we have Aleph, power and strength. Aleph, power and strength. Last we have Tav, a cross or covenant. In the middle we have Mem, water or blood. If you put these three pictographs together, if you put these three together, you can easily see that Yeshua is a perfect representation of the word emeth, the word truth, in its original form. It was Yeshua who came to earth with power and strength and with the ability to overcome Satan. Power and strength. He started the covenant that is spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. And he poured out his water and blood, his life, for the forgiveness of sins. Jeremiah 31, verse 31 through 34 reads, "The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they broke my covenant, though I was a husband to them, declares the Lord. This is the covenant I will make with the people of Israel after that time, declares Yahweh. I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer will they teach their neighbor or say to one another, 'Know Yahweh, know the Lord,' because they will all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares Yahweh, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their wickedness, and I will remember their sins no more." Jeremiah 31 through 34. Every pictographic representation of this word truth, Aleph, Mem, Tav, is an aspect of Yeshua. The Apostle John reinforces this concept. John 1:14, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, glory as the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth." 1 John 5, verse 6, "This is the one who came by water and blood, Yeshua HaMashiach, not with the water only, but with the water and with the blood." And John 14:6, "Yeshua, Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me." Yeshua, Jesus, shed his blood so that we might have forgiveness of sin and salvation. Indeed, a covenant is made with us and Yeshua, a covenant of life everlasting. Yeshua had the strength and power to overcome the temptations of this world and the master deceiver. We as humans of ourselves cannot begin to do this. Yet Yeshua made the way for us. How great you are, Yeshua. How great thou art. He is the truth. His words are the truth. His way of life is the truth. Everything about him is true, honest, and faithful. Now, with this baseline being established, the fact that Yeshua equals the truth, and Yeshua is our firm foundation, plus the fact that Yeshua was Jewish, and the writers we're going to be referring to were all Jewish, and the fact that they were not assimilated into Greek Roman culture, they were Hebrews, they were Jews. Let's proceed with our passages of interest. First, by reading and discussing in English the passages, and then we'll look at them as keywords translated into Hebrew. So what I want to do here now is I want to read Matthew 5 verses 1 through 12 in English, and then next on our next class we'll begin to look at the Hebrew keywords. Matthew 5 1 through 12, King James Version. I'm reading this out of the King James because it is so popular and well known. I just want to read it out of the King James. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. And in our next class we'll begin to look at some of these key words as they're translated into Hebrew, looking at the Hebrew definitions of these words, and this is going to make this passage come alive like it never has to you. I hope it sure did to me, at least, and other people that we've discussed this with as well. So until next time, this is Tom Thorne from Updatell Elyon, Servants of the Most High God Ministries, and we will see you later.